Hey guys, welcome back to more AFK Arena. I've been getting asked to do these types of videos, so let me know what you think about this one in the comments. We can do some other type of ones like this, but today's video is going to be my top 5 DPS damage dealers in AFK Arena. This is not going to include Celestials, Hypergeans, or Dimensionals. Celestials and Hypergeans just because we'll probably do them in their own thing, and Dimensionals because the only damage dealing Dimensionals have been limited time, so not everyone has access to them. And just to get some disclaimers out of the way, it's not just looking at like end game right now, this is the best damage dealer. This is how they flow through the whole game, just a broad overview, and also the staying power, like whether they will have the capacity to keep being good as the game develops based on what kind of stuff they provide. Hope that makes sense. It's not just like these are the best damage dealers, you have to get them, this is where they are. This is just all over the game, and you know, into the future these guys aren't really gonna lose a position due to something doing exactly what they do and being more powerful. Hope that makes sense. Leave in the comments what you think, and let's get into it. Number 5 on the list is going to be Sophia. Now, Sophia, not purely because of the raw damage that she can deal, but it's also due to the fact that she has the pyramid. Now, the pyramid is the unique thing that I feel like Sophia is always going to have a position somewhere in a team along the way. The pyramid, like, as a raw AoE damage dealer, which she pretty much is, that kind of thing can always get outclassed. We look at just AoE, just pure AoE damage can always get just beefed up on. Like we got Irons now in the game, who's just an absolute AoE savage, and like he just takes the mantle. And the thing with Irons is eventually they could decide we don't want Irons to be the #1 anymore, and then they just make something that does better AoE damage than Irons. I know it sounds impossible right now, but it could happen. So Sophia, not only on the fact that she's a real solid AoE damage dealer, which is really nice to have, she also has that little bit of control. She also has the shield she puts on an ally that gives more damage, but then it is really that spectral disruption where you can play it in multiple ways, whether it's just to buff your ally damage dealer in that back row, or if you want to use it to mitigate some damage of a sniper like a Sylvina, or whether you want to combine it with something like an Eron, a Nara, a Keltha, all that good stuff that puts enemies into your pyramid. It's just a really nice feature, even if she does fall out of the meta for a period of time. As more characters come into the game that do have synergies with the pyramid, putting enemies into that side of the field, she's just going to become more relevant. Also really nice with her, is it the furniture or signature item, how she converts her basic attack into that stunning attack, which ain't too bad either. But that is why Sophia is position 5 on this list. Not completely like demolishing everything like the other guys on this list will be, but the pyramid in itself is enough to warrant her having a place in the game basically forever. And like I said, she'll ebb and flow, but she'll always stay relevant in my opinion. Let's move on. Number 4 on the list, and it is going to be my girl Gwyneth. Now, just hold on. It's not because I absolutely love this chick that she gets on the list. She has that staying power as well. Similar to Sophia, she has that unique ability where she has AoE damage on her basic attack if she procs those arrows, that has a heal block, which is always relevant, and also a stun. And even though against some team compositions, she's absolutely trash, the fact that you can get a passive repetitive stun, it is RNG based, but if you get that RNG and you keep getting those lightning arrows, you can get a passive like repetitive stun that's going to keep interrupting your enemies. Also, like I said, we've got the heal block on top of that, which is just a feature that's always good to have on a character. Obviously with things like Arthur, Leica, Rosaline, everything that can buff the damage output, not only does she have the stun and the heal block, but she also has massive damage that doesn't require an ultimate to do. Obviously, if she can do her ultimate, it's really nice because then she's going to get the double arrows on the next ability. But the real key to Gwyneth is that basic attack, which is really nice, and anything that comes into the game that has a chance of buffing basic attack speed or anything like that just makes her more and more relevant. Now, she has fallen off a little bit recently in the meta from what I've seen, but she is still always going to be really strong and really relevant and a real good counter. Basically, if you run into campaign any enemy teams that have 3 back row enemies that stay in the back row, pretty much GG most of the time when you're using Gwyneth. So she gets number 4. Moving into number 3, we have Soros. Now, this guy's a beast because, yes, he's a really strong single target damage dealer, but once, kind of like what I said with the AoE damage dealers, you can always just make a stronger single target damage dealer. However, Soros is really strong the whole game through, I find. I even find him as a pretty decent early game carry, even without that 30 signature item. But if you can invest in him and get him up there, 30 signature item is the sweet spot. But like I said, you can phase out a single target damage dealer by making a stronger one. But the fact that you can have a damage dealer, even if he is not the top damage dealer, when he can deal this much damage, but also heal on top of it, it's just like, it's a relevance that's hard to lose in boss fights and stuff like that. The fact that he can come as your healer, but then deal damage is amazing. It means you don't have to have anything that's going to bring sustain on your team because you just have him in there. The other thing that I want to mention with Soros is the fact that this ability here, where is it? Stuns for 2 seconds, causing them to become stunned for 2 seconds. And he just swaps between these two abilities. Obviously, if he gets CC'd, it's not the greatest thing for him. But the fact that he is able to CC on top of this, and it attacks all nearby enemies. So grouped enemies are going to cop an AoE stun from this, on top of the massive damage that he just deals, and he can shred. Once he stacks up, he's just absolutely shredding enemies. And then on top of that, the healing just makes me think he's just always going to be relevant. Now, against CC heavy teams, he's really hard to use. However, in campaign, if you keep retrying, you can eventually get him to work against heavy CC teams based on the RNG of who they actually CC. Also, he's sort of a replacement for God Comp. He can squeeze into the God Comp and saves you that one harder to obtain hero to put into it. And he really does work for stuff like that. So Soros, definitely number 3 on my list. Into number 2, and it's my boy Stitchy. Damon. Now, this guy, I feel like the same. At the moment, he is just incredibly strong, and he's got the ability that makes it seem like he's never going to just be dissipated out of the meta. The fact that he deals damage based on the enemy's max HP and also shields himself means that he's really nice at protecting himself, but also that damage he deals is going to scale the whole game from early game to late game, pushing at a level deficit. Doesn't matter. He's always going to be dealing massive damage no matter what the enemy. And that is pretty much, there's not too much else I need to say about him. Obviously, we do have a little stun and stuff like that, but the big thing is going to be this blood shield and the fact that it's taking from the maximum HP of the enemies, and he does it off multiple enemies. Throw on top of that the signature item, which is just going to buff his stats as well. He's just an absolute beast. There's nothing else to say except for the HP scaling. And yes, they could introduce another hero that scales off of HP, but I'd struggle to see something that's going to fit in quite as well as Stitchy does. Like, it's just absolutely amazing the way he can just carry teams off of that raw damage. And he's just a good wall breaker, basically. If you come up against enemies that are heavy tank based, like Goluses, Scrags, anything that's really thick and hard to kill, Stitchy just doesn't care. He just goes, okay, you sit there and be tanky. I'm going to eat the same amount of health out of you. And it really doesn't bother me. So he is definitely one that I see being relevant in especially campaign, not as prominent in arena due to the HP scaling being more effective the higher the scaling goes compared to other damage that you can deal. But definitely in campaign, this guy is always going to stay relevant. And finally, number 1 on my list is going to be Iron. Now, Iron, he's got a couple things where you're like, okay, well, they could just introduce another hero that does that. The rumored Mauler hero, for instance. Anyway, we'll get into that when it actually gets released. But the thing about Iron, they can introduce something else that drags enemies in. But the fact that on top of that, he does have the ignore defense factor, and on top of that, he has the freezing and the CC. His kit is just so amazing. He's got the slow, he's got the freeze, he's got the drag, which the more heroes that come into the game, because you always hear me say chicken Iron, the more heroes that come into the game that have something that can benefit from the drag, the better it's going to get. Anything with an AoE stun, Sophia, for instance, with the pyramid. There's just so many things that are always going to synergize with Iron. And like I said, even if they make something that drags enemies, like obviously we have something like Nara, Kelta can swap them as well. They're only single target. Even if they make an AoE version of this, the fact that you've still got ignore defense on your team, even though it may not be as good in high scaling campaign, which he still is really good in. The PvP implications of the ignored defense are always going to be fantastic. And like I said, he's also got the control, which is huge. But the big staying power for me is still going to be the Vortex, which is going to suck in those enemies. And just like I said, the continual synergies that will keep being developed in the game that are going to work together with this is going to be ridiculous. I just love Iron, and every time I see a new hero, basically, I just get excited about synergies. And the first thing I normally think is Iron, because he's a beast. But anyway, that is going to be it for my top 5 DPS in AFK Arena at the moment. Obviously not including the Celestials, Hypergenes, and Dimensionals. Let me know your list. Let me know what you think of my list. Let me have it. I'm cool. I know there's going to be people hating my list, but it's all good, guys. It's all good. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.